Welcome to Monk's Temple. Come in. Find a space on the cushion, on the floor, or simply settle into the chair you're in right now. You are welcome here, exactly as you are. There's a quiet myth we often carry with us on this path, a whisper that says to seek peace is to already be peaceful. That to walk towards serenity, you must not feel the tremors of the earth under your feet. We imagine the destination as a still, silent pool, and then we judge every ripple within us as failure. The frustration at the traffic, the simmering hurt from a careless word, the anxious churn about tomorrow, we see these not as part of the path, but as proof we have strayed from it. I lost my Zen, we sigh, as if we mislaid a set of keys. Today, we gently lay that myth down. This is not a space for perfect calm. This is a space for honest presence. The wisdom of Buddhism, flowing through centuries, does not ask you to cease being human. It asks you to understand your humanity with profound clarity. It offers not a mask of tranquility, but a mirror of compassionate insight. So if you've ever clenched your jaw in a meditation, ever felt a surge of irritation at the very idea of letting go, ever wondered why the quest for peace can feel so deeply frustrating, good. You are paying attention. And that attention is the most sacred material we have. This is your permission slip for the full human experience on the spiritual path. Your permission to not be Zen, in order to understand what Zen truly is. Let's begin with a story you've never heard before. It's about a violin maker named Leo. Leo spent decades in his workshop, a cave of scented wood and quiet focus. His dream was to create a single instrument of such perfection that it would hold a note pure and unwavering for longer than any other. He sought the most resilient spruce, the most perfectly flamed maple. He carved, sanded, and assembled with microscopic precision. Finally, the day came. He drew the bow across the strings of his masterpiece in a silent workshop, producing a clear, beautiful A. He held his breath. The note hung in the air, and then, like all notes, it faded. It dissipated into the quiet. Leo felt a hot wave of frustration, then a crushing despair. Decades of work, and he could not defeat the basic physics of sound. He put his head in his hands, a profound sense of failure settling on him. Weeks later, a seasoned conductor visited Leo's shop. Seeing the dust gathering on the perfect violin, he asked to hear it. Reluctantly, Leo played the note. It faded as always. The conductor listened, then smiled. "Leo," he said, "you have misunderstood the purpose of the instrument. Its beauty is not in defying the fade. Its genius is in the quality of the silence it leaves behind." A cheap violin's note vanishes into a dead, flat quiet. This note, it decays into a rich, expectant, resonant silence. It informs the quiet. It makes the space that follows more profound. You didn't fail to capture permanence. You succeeded in creating a sublime transition. Leo's frustration melted not into achievement, but into understanding. He had been at war with a fundamental law: all notes fade. All sensations pass. His suffering wasn't in the fade, but in his demand that his creation violate the nature of sound itself. This is our first, and perhaps most vital, psychological insight from the Buddha's framework. The core of suffering, what in Buddhism is called dukkha, is often just this: the exhausting, painful gap between what is and what we desperately insist must be. Leo's note had to be permanent. Your mood must be consistently bright. Your mind must be instantly still. Your life must be free of friction. When reality gently, consistently, presents itself as it is, impermanent, sometimes difficult, often changing, we meet it not with curiosity, but with a kind of internal protest. We lean against the door of life, shoving with all our might, frustrated it won't open, only to realize, much later, it was designed to open toward us. All we had to do was stop pushing and shift our weight. The Buddha's first noble truth is not a condemnation of life. It's a diagnosis. It's the compassionate identification of that ache of resistance. And the moment we hear that truth not as life is suffering, but as there is a quality of unease when we resist the current of life, the entire path shifts from a grim duty to a fascinating investigation. If this exploration of the space between resistance and reality is resonating with you, if you're curious about how to stop pushing on that door, then consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. Each session is a new step in this shared investigation, a fresh perspective on ancient wisdom for our modern minds. Your presence here is a note in our collective silence, and we'd be honored for you to stay. Now, let's leave Leo's workshop and step into a modern scene. Imagine you're late for an important meeting. You're in your car, and you hit every single red light. Not just one or two, a relentless cascade of crimson. What happens inside? The grip on the steering wheel tightens. A sigh huffs out. Come on, you mutter. The clock on the dashboard seems to tick with malicious speed. This is frustration in its raw, unzen state. The old, simplistic self-help might say, just breathe. Accept it. It's out of your control. And part of you wants to throw that advice out the window. Because the feeling is real. So let's not bypass it. Let's use the Buddhist framework as a psychological lens. First, acknowledge the data stream. Buddhism teaches mindfulness, sati. The bare awareness of phenomena. Right now, the phenomena are visual input, red light, bodily sensation, tension in shoulders, grip in hands, mental formation, I'm going to be late, this is a disaster, an emotional feeling, frustration, anxiety. Don't try to change the data. Just note the full packet, seeing red. Sensing tightness. Thinking catastrophic thought. Feeling frustration. You are the sky, noticing the weather. The frustration is a storm front moving through. It is not you. Second, identify the craving. This is the second noble truth. Suffering has an origin, a cause. In this moment, what is the specific craving? It's likely twofold, the craving for the lights to be other than they are, aversion to reality, and the craving for your punctual, calm, professional self-image to be manifest, attachment to an ideal. The pain isn't just in the red light, it's in the violent wish for it to be green, and the fearful story about what its redness means for your identity. Third, apply the antidote of wise view. This is where we weave in the modern psychological insight. The thought, this is a disaster, is a cognitive distortion, catastrophizing. The Buddhist teaching of right view asks us to see things as they are, without the projective film of our fears. Is it inconvenient? Yes. Is it a disaster? Likely not. The meeting will start. You will arrive. The world will continue. By separating the actual event, delay. From the mental movie, career ruin, personal failure, we create a space. And in that space, a curious thing happens, the frustration, while still present, loses its fuel. It becomes a passing sensation, not a defining truth. You might even laugh. You might take the extra 90 seconds at the red light to simply be in your body, to hear a song on the radio you'd missed. The situation didn't change. Your relationship to the situation did. This is the alchemy. We're not suppressing frustration, we're allowing it to exist while refusing to let it write the narrative. We're moving from being in the frustration to being with the frustration. There's a universe of difference in that preposition. Let me offer you an original metaphor. Think of your awareness as a vast, deep, clear mountain lake. Thoughts, emotions, sensations, these are all things that happen on or to the lake. A leaf of thought floats by. A fish of sensation darts beneath the surface. A storm of frustration whips up waves. Our habitual error is to identify as the leaf, the fish, or the storm. I am frustrated, we declare, becoming the temporary weather. The practice, the path of Buddhism, is the gradual, gentle remembering that you are the lake itself. The lake holds the storm. It is stirred by it, but it is not destroyed by it. The lake's nature is depth, clarity, and the capacity to contain. The storm, for all its fury, is a surface event. It rises, it rages, and it passes. The lake remains. Your awareness is that lake. The frustration is a weather pattern. You can feel its full force without becoming it. Now, let's explore this through an original story, a parable from the world of Monk's temple. There was a gardener named Anya who tended the temple's renowned peony beds. She was devoted, but she had a singular fixation: she despised weeds. To her, a weed was an insult to beauty, a flaw in her perfect tapestry of color. Every day, she would wage war, yanking them out with fervor, her knuckles stained with soil, her brow furrowed in battle. Yet, the more fiercely she fought, the more the weeds seemed to thrive. She'd clear one bed only to find another invaded. Her frustration grew into a bitter companion. The peonies, sensing her tense energy, began to bloom less vibrantly. One evening, the old head monk found her sitting amidst the beds, crying quietly. "I cannot defeat them," she said. "They ruin everything." The monk sat beside her, not looking at the flowers, but at her face. "Anya," he said softly, "what is a weed?" "A plant that is not desired," she answered immediately. "A plant that is out of place." "And who decides what is desired? Who decides what is in its place?" he asked. He pointed to a large, broad-leafed plant with a sturdy stalk she was about to attack. "That one, for instance. You see a thief stealing water from your peonies. The bees see a landing pad and a source of pollen when the peonies are dormant. The soil sees a deep root that prevents erosion. You are looking at the same life, but you see only conflict." He continued. "Your frustration is not a sign you are a bad gardener. It is a sign you are seeing only one note in a symphony. You believe the symphony should only have flutes. But the cellos and the drums are also music. They are just different vibrations." Anya was skeptical but exhausted. The next day, instead of attacking, she attempted to observe. She knelt and actually looked at a weed. She saw its intricate leaf structure, the tiny hairs on its stem, the way it turned toward the sun just as the peonies did. She didn't pull it. A week later, she noticed aphids on her prized peonies, but they were all clustered on a few sacrificial weeds she had left, leaving the flowers untouched. The weeds had become a natural pest control. Her enemy had become a protector. Her frustration didn't vanish overnight, but it transformed. It became curiosity, then wonder, then a humbled respect. She stopped tending a peony garden and began tending an ecosystem. The result was not a sterile perfection, but a lush, vibrant, resilient, and truly beautiful lifescape. This story is a direct mirror of the Buddhist principle of right view and the cessation of craving. Anya's suffering, dukkha, originated in her craving for a weed-free garden, attachment to an ideal, and her aversion to the weeds themselves. Her entire sense of self was tied to being a conqueror of undesirables. When she shifted her view, when she saw the interdependent nature of the garden, the craving lost its object. She didn't get what she originally wanted, a weed-free bed. She got something better, peace, harmony, and a healthier garden. The path offered her not the success of her battle, but the end of the war. We can translate this directly to our inner lives. That anxious thought, that recurrent jealousy, that pang of insecurity, we treat them as weeds. We try to yank them out by the roots, to purge them from the garden of our mind. And we get frustrated when they grow back, stronger. What if, instead, we learn to see their ecology? What is this anxiety trying to protect me from? What need does this jealousy point to? This insecurity, what old story is it feeding on? We don't have to let them run the show, but we can study them. In understanding their role, their fuel, they often lose their destructive power and may even reveal a hidden function. The thought isn't you. It's a mental phenomenon with conditions. Change the conditions, the view, the relationship, and the phenomenon changes. Let's dive deeper into this idea of changing the conditions, with a modern, psychological twist on an ancient concept, anatta, or not self. Western psychology often encourages us to find ourselves, to build a strong sense of self. Buddhism presents a radical, and initially unsettling, counterpoint. There is no permanent, fixed, unchanging self to be found. This isn't nihilism. It's liberation. Think of it like this: you are not a solid, carved statue. You are a river. A constantly flowing, changing, dynamic process. The water is never the same from one moment to the next. The banks shift. The currents mingle. To say, "I am the river," is true in a sense, but it's more accurate to say, there is river ing happening. You are a verb, not a noun. Why is this psychologically helpful? Because so much of our suffering is tied to defending the statue. I am a person who never gets angry. Then anger arises, and you have a crisis of identity. I am a failure. You latch onto that noun, that solid, painful self-concept, and build a fortress around it. Anatta whispers, "That's not you. That's a passing weather pattern in the river. That's a temporary confluence of conditions, a memory, a hormonal shift, a triggered fear." It allows you to say, anger is arising, without having to become an angry person. It allows you to see, the thought of failure is present, without cementing it into, "I am a failure." Here's an original anecdote. A successful CEO, let's call her Maya, came to the temple grappling with what she called imposter syndrome. It was a crushing, constant narrative: "You don't deserve this. You're a fraud. They'll find out." She had tried affirmations: "I am confident. I am capable." They rang hollow. She tried therapy, which helped but didn't dissolve the core feeling. We didn't talk about building a better self. We talked about deconstructing the imposter. I asked her to describe the imposter. "It's a younger version of me," she said. "In here first suit, trying too hard, scared of being seen as dumb." I asked, "When that feeling arises in a board meeting now, where is that young woman? Is she in the room? Or is she a ghost, a memory being replayed?" She sat quietly. "A ghost," she said. "So," I offered, "the feeling is real. The physiological response, the tightness, the quick heartbeat, is real. But the story that it's proof of your current fraudulence, that's an old recording. That's the river mistaking a leaf from upstream for a part of its present flow. The leaf is here, but it comes from back there." We practiced a simple phrase when the feeling hit, "Ah. The ghost of the first suit is visiting." This phrase created instant space. It acknowledged the data, the anxiety, without buying the story, "I am an imposter." It allowed her to greet the feeling with, "Hello, old fear. I see you. You are not me, and you are not the truth of this moment." Over time, the ghost visited less often, and with far less power. She wasn't fighting herself. She was understanding her own process. This is the fusion, psychological parts work, recognizing internalized aspects, meets the Buddhist insight of non-identification. You are the space where all these phenomena, the confident CEO, the scared young woman, the angry part, the joyful part, arise and pass away. You are the awareness that holds it all. When you stop trying to be one solid, consistent thing, you become everything, and thus, free. Now, let's explore another cornerstone, but from a completely different angle than you may be used to: karma. Karma is not fate. It is not a cosmic punishment and reward system. Think of it as the universal law of cause and effect, applied with psychological precision. Every action, every word, every thought is a seed. It is planted in the field of your consciousness and the interconnected field of the world. The fruit it bears is not a judgment, it's a natural consequence. Plant an apple seed, get an apple tree, not a thunderbolt. But here's the psychological, actionable insight: the most potent karmic seeds we plant are often the ones we sow in our own minds. Our repetitive thoughts are a form of mental action. They groove neural pathways. A thought of, "I am not enough," repeated daily, is a seed. The fruit is a lived experience of scarcity, anxiety, and self-sabotage. That's not magic, that's neuroscience. Your brain strengthens the circuits you use most. The practice, then, is to become a conscious gardener of your inner karmic field. When the old, weedy thought arises, "This is too hard, I should quit," you have a choice. You can water that seed by dwelling on it, embellishing the story, feeling the resentment. Or, you can gently note it, the quitting thought, and consciously plant a different, more skillful seed. Not a forced affirmation, but a wise question: what is one small step I can take right now? Or, this difficulty is part of the process of learning. You are not denying the first thought. You are simply choosing not to give it all your water and sunlight. Let me illustrate with an original, lengthy story. This one takes us to a pottery studio. Elias was a potter who dreamed of creating a single, sublime vase, a form of such perfect symmetry and grace it would seem to hold light within its curves. He would sit at his wheel, a lump of cool, wet clay before him. He'd start centering, but a microscopic wobble would enter his mind. It's off. He'd push harder, overcorrecting. The wobble would become a visible shudder. Frustration, seed of aversion, would arise. Useless, he'd think, seed of self-judgment. He'd collapse the clay and start again. This cycle repeated for months. His studio floor was littered with the slumped ghosts of failed attempts. His karmic field was a monocrop of frustration and collapse. One day, an art teacher brought her students to visit. A young girl, maybe 8, watched Elias with wide eyes as he went through his cycle of centering, wobble, frustration, collapse. On his 5th attempt, as he sighed in defeat, she piped up, her voice clear in the quiet studio. "Why do you kill them when they start to dance?" Elias froze. "What?" "The clay," she said. "When it starts to wiggle. It looks like it's dancing. But you always stop it." Elias looked at the lump of clay, then at his tense hands. He had never seen it as a dance. He had seen it only as error, as deviation from his rigid ideal of perfect, motionless symmetry. The seed of a new thought was planted. What if the wobble is part of the life? The next day, he sat down with a different intention. Not to conquer the clay, but to converse with it. The wobble came, as it always did. Instead of the thought, "It's off," he planted the seed of curiosity. "Hello, wobble. What are you?" Instead of forcing it to center, he followed its motion lightly, like a partner in a dance. His hands softened. The wobble didn't vanish, it transformed. It became a gentle, rhythmic pulse. He followed that pulse, allowing the clay to rise. It didn't rise into a perfect cylinder. It rose into a soft, organic, asymmetrical form. It had movement in its very structure. When he finished, he had not a vase of rigid symmetry, but a vessel that looked like it had grown from the earth, captured in a moment of gentle swaying. It was infinitely more beautiful, more alive, than the sterile ideal in his mind. Elias's karma changed that day. He changed the seeds. From seeds of judgment and force, he shifted to seeds of curiosity and cooperation. The fruit was not just a beautiful pot, but a fundamental shift in his relationship to his craft, to frustration, and to life itself. His suffering had been rooted in his craving for a specific, fixed outcome. His liberation was found in engaging with the living, dancing process. This is the heart of the path. It's not about achieving a state of perpetual, flat calm. It's about changing your relationship with the wobble. Your frustration is a wobble. Your anxiety is a wobble. Your fear is a wobble. The ancient, reactive karma is to see it as enemy and try to kill it. The new, mindful karma is to see it as information, as a kind of dance, and to engage with it skillfully. Hello, wobble. What are you here to teach me? This question is a revolutionary act of self-compassion. Let's bring this into the realm of relationships with another original story. Sam and Alex had been partners for years. They had a recurring, painful argument. It always started the same way. Alex would make a casual, slightly critical observation about the house being messy or a bill being paid late. Sam would hear it not as an observation, but as a global indictment. You are a slob. You are irresponsible. Sam would then react with defensive anger. Alex, in turn, would feel attacked for merely mentioning something, and would withdraw. Silence would descend for days. Both were trapped in a karmic loop, planting seeds of resentment and reaping a harvest of distance. They were caught in what Buddhism calls samsara, the cyclical round of suffering, driven by ignorance and reactive habit. The ignorance here was a fundamental misperception. Sam was fusing his identity with his actions. I did a messy thing, became, I am a mess. Alex was unaware of the delivery's impact, hearing Sam's defense as an irrational attack. The way out wasn't a communication workshop, though those can help. The way out was to break the karmic chain at the point of the seed, the initial interpretation. We practiced a pause. The next time the trigger occurred, Sam's job was not to suppress his feeling, but to notice the internal cascade before speaking. Hearing critical words, feeling heat in face, thought, I'm being attacked, feeling anger, just that. That pause of awareness created a crack in the automatic loop. In that crack, Sam could plant a new seed. Instead of the thought, you're attacking me, he could try the thought, Alex is sharing a stress about the environment. It wasn't about who was right, it was about choosing a seed that would bear the fruit of connection, not conflict. He then said, it sounds like the clutter is really stressing you out. That's hard. What's one thing we could do right now to make it feel a bit better? The old karma was broken. Alex, disarmed by the lack of defense, softened. Yeah, it's just been overwhelming. Maybe we could just clear the coffee table together. The argument didn't happen. The cycle was interrupted. This is nirvana in a relational sense, not a heavenly state, but the extinguishing of the fires of greed, for being right, aversion, to criticism, and delusion, of identity fusion. It's the freedom that comes when you stop blindly planting the same poisonous seeds. Every moment of mindful pause is a moment you are not reinforcing your personal samsara. You are opting out of your own suffering cycle. We often think of spiritual work as solitary, done on a cushion in silence. But some of the most potent practice happens in the messy, wobbling dance of human connection. Your partner, your parent, your colleague, they are your most advanced meditation teachers. They show you exactly where your attachments are, where your aversions flare, where your sense of self feels threatened. Thank them for that. Then, use the pause. Change the seed. Let's now turn to a concept that is frequently misunderstood, detachment. Detachment in Buddhism does not mean apathy, indifference, or cold withdrawal. It doesn't mean you shouldn't love deeply, care passionately, or engage fully with life. That's a tragic misreading. Think of it instead as non-grasping. It's the difference between holding a bird in your hand and strangling it, versus holding it with an open palm, allowing it to stay or fly as it wishes. One is possession, fueled by fear of loss. The other is love, fueled by respect for the other's freedom and nature. The psychological term for this is differentiation. It's the ability to be deeply connected to someone or something without your emotional well-being being entirely contingent upon them behaving a certain way. Your happiness is not held hostage by your child's grades, your partner's mood, or the success of your project. You can care intensely, work diligently, and love profoundly, while simultaneously holding an inner space that recognizes, this is a separate phenomenon. I cannot control it. My worth is not defined by its outcome. Here is an original, modern fable about detachment. Lena was a brilliant software engineer who led a team developing a revolutionary new app. Her identity was fused with the project. She worked 80-hour weeks. She dreamed in code. When a beta test revealed a major bug, she experienced it not as a technical problem, but as a personal failure. She became frantic, demanding, micromanaging her team, her fear of failure a toxic cloud in the office. The team's morale plummeted. Creativity died. The bug persisted. She hit a wall of burnout. On a forced walk, she passed a community garden and saw an old man tending tomato plants. He was singing softly to them. She stopped, oddly captivated by his peace. "They're beautiful," she said. "Thank you," he smiled. "They have their own ideas, though." "What do you mean?" "Well," he said, wiping his hands. "I can prepare the soil. I can give them water, and good compost, and a stick to climb. But I cannot make a tomato. The sun makes the tomato. The seed's own intelligence makes the tomato. My job is just to create the conditions, then get out of the way. If I stand here yelling at it to grow, or crying because a leaf is yellow, I'm just scaring the plant and exhausting myself." Lena stood there, and the metaphor struck her with physical force. She was yelling at her code, crying over bugs, trying to force a creation into being. She had forgotten that the sun and the seed's intelligence, the collective creativity of her team, the natural iterative process of development, the unseen factors in the market. She returned to the office on Monday and called a meeting. "I'm sorry," she said. "I've been trying to make the tomatoes by force. Let's just look at the conditions. What does this bug need to thrive? What are we missing?" She shifted from a controller to a gardener. She provided resources, removed obstacles, then trusted the process. The team, feeling the pressure lift, brainstormed a clever solution in 2 days. The bug was fixed. Lena practiced detachment. She detached her self-worth from the outcome. She detached her method from control. She remained fiercely committed. A good gardener cares deeply, but she released the stranglehold. The result was not indifference, but a more intelligent, effective, and joyful engagement. Her suffering was the grasping. Her peace was the open hand. This is so applicable. Are you grasping at a specific outcome in your relationship, your career, your health? That grasp is the source of your anxiety. Can you, like the gardener, do your part with excellence and care, then open your hand to the 10,000 other factors you cannot control? This open hand is the birthplace of true resilience and peace. Now, let's weave in another foundational principle through a story about sound engineering. Ravi was a sound engineer for live concerts. His job was to mix the audio so the audience heard a perfect balance. He worked in a booth, with a massive board of sliders controlling each instrument and voice. Early in his career, he'd chase problems. The guitarist's solo is too loud. He'd frantically pull that slider down. Now the bass is too prominent. He'd adjust the bass. Now the vocals are lost. He was in a constant state of reaction, fighting against the sound, trying to impose a static idea of perfect mix on a dynamic, living performance. He left every show hoarse and with a tension headache, though the audiences were often happy. One day, a veteran engineer visited. He watched Ravi's frantic dance for a song, then placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're fighting the music," he said calmly. "Stop listening to the parts. Listen to the space between the parts. This made no sense to Ravi. But in the next song, he tried. Instead of focusing on the wailing guitar, he tried to listen to the silence it emerged from and returned to. Instead of isolating the drum hit, he listened to the resonance it created in the room. He began to hear the concert not as a collection of separate sounds to be controlled, but as a single, flowing field of vibration. His adjustments became subtle, anticipatory, more about shaping the field than correcting errors. He wasn't eliminating problems, he was sculpting presence. That night, he left the booth energized. The mix wasn't just balanced, it was alive. This is a metaphor for sunyata, often translated as emptiness. It doesn't mean nothingness. It means that all things are empty of independent, separate existence. Everything exists in relation to everything else. The guitar note only has meaning because of the silence around it. The drum is defined by the space it punches. Your self is not a solo instrument. It is a note in a constant, interdependent symphony of causes, conditions, relationships, and perceptions. The psychological suffering, the loneliness, the feeling of being separate and judged, comes from listening only to our own isolated slider, our own narrative track. My track is too quiet. My track is off-key. Their track is better. We miss the symphony. The practice is to periodically widen your awareness to the space between your thoughts, between your breaths, between you and the person you're talking to. In that space, you feel the connection, the interdependence. You realize your frustration isn't a lonely island, it's a wave in a vast ocean of human experience. This realization is profoundly calming. It's the end of the lonely, exhausting fight to manage your solo performance perfectly. You are freed to participate in the music. Let's apply this to a very common modern suffering, the pain of the digital world, of social media comparison. You scroll. You see a former colleague's promotion, a friend's perfect vacation, an influencer's curated bliss. The comparison slider in your mind shoots up. Your own life track suddenly sounds dull, off-key. According to our metaphor, you are listening only to two isolated tracks, their highlight reel and your behind-the-scenes footage. You are ignoring the entire symphony of context, struggle, editing, and your own unique melody. The Buddhist framework of right view and sunyata intervenes. First, right view, see these posts for what they are, tiny, curated fragments of a much larger, unreported whole. Your own mind is projecting a narrative of completeness onto them. Second, sunyata, remember interdependence. That promotion likely came with stress, sacrifice, and unseen support. Your own, behind the scenes, contains moments of connection, tiny victories, and peace that never make it to a feed. Life is not a competition of highlight reels. It is a vast, interconnected tapestry where joy, sorrow, effort, and rest are woven together for everyone. When you feel that pang, don't judge it. Note it, the comparison weather has arrived. Then, widen your view. Put down the phone. Feel your body in the chair. Listen to the actual sounds in your room. You are here, in your life, which is a rich and unique movement in the great symphony. Their track is not better, it is just different. Return to your own melody. Tend to it. That is enough. To deepen this, Let me share a story from the archives of Monk's Temple, about a clockmaker. Felix repaired antique clocks. He lived in a small apartment that ticked and talked with a dozen different rhythms. A client brought him a magnificent, broken 18th century grandfather clock. "It hasn't chimed in 50 years, the client said. "I just wanted to tell the time quietly." Felix spent weeks on it. He cleaned, oiled, replaced worn gears. Finally, he got the pendulum swinging and the hands moving in perfect, silent synchronization. It told impeccable time. He was proud. But as he listened, the silence of the clock began to feel wrong. Its truth was incomplete. It was built to chime, to mark the hours with a bold, beautiful sound. By only allowing it to tell time silently, he was asking it to live a half-life. He went back to work, delicately repairing the complex chiming mechanism. It was risky. One wrong move could jam the whole clock. The day came for the test. As the hands reached noon, there was a series of clicks, a deep breath of mechanics, and then bong! A rich, profound, resonant chime filled his workshop. The other clocks seemed to listen. Felix felt tears in his eyes. It wasn't just a clock telling time anymore. It was a clock fulfilling its nature. The silence between the chimes was now rich with expectation and memory. We are like that clock. Our culture often asks us to just tell time efficiently, quietly, productively. Don't make a fuss. Don't chime. But your frustration, your passion, your so-called negative emotions, they are part of your chiming mechanism. They are there to mark the significant hours of your soul. To mute them is to live a half-life. The Buddhist path is not about disabling the chime. It's about repairing the entire mechanism so it works harmoniously. So that when pain chimes, it is clear and acknowledged, not a stuck, jarring racket. When joy chimes, it rings out fully. And the silence in between, the ordinary moments, become profound because they exist in relation to the truth of your full expression. Your frustration on the path is the sound of a chime mechanism that's been stuck, trying to work. Don't silence it. Listen to it. It's telling you something true about a need, a boundary, a passion, or a misalignment. Your job is not to stop the chime, but to understand it, to integrate it, so your entire being can function as the complex, beautiful, sometimes loud instrument it was meant to be. Let's explore the role of the body, often neglected in purely cerebral spiritual seeking. Buddhism is an embodied philosophy. The Buddha's awakening happened not in a realm of pure thought, but under a tree, in a body that had known austerity and nourishment. Mindfulness of the body, Kayagatasati, is a foundation. Your body is the primary field where karma manifests. Stress is a thought, yes, but it is also a clenching in the jaw, a knot in the stomach, a shallowness of breath. To ignore the body is to try to tune the symphony by looking only at the sheet music, never hearing the instruments. The body doesn't lie. It speaks the truth of the present moment, if we learn its language. Here's a simple, original practice. Next time you feel a wave of frustration or anxiety, before you go into the story of why, go into the sensation of where. Pause. Close your eyes if you can. Scan inwardly. Where is this feeling located? Is it a pressure in the chest? A buzzing in the arms? A heat in the face? Don't try to change it. Just place your gentle awareness on that location, as if you're shining a soft light on it. Breathe into that space, not to dissolve it, but to keep it company. Say inwardly, "This is how frustration feels in my body right now." This simple act of somatic acknowledgement does two things. It grounds you in the present reality, not the mental story about past or future, and it often takes the sharp edge off the emotion. The emotion is being felt, not fought. It is allowed to complete its wave. This is profound self-compassion. You are treating your embodied experience with the respect you'd give a friend in pain. You're not saying, "Don't feel that." You're saying, "I am here with you, feeling that." Let me illustrate with a story about a dancer named Sophia. Sophia was renowned for her physical discipline, but she saw her body as a tool, an instrument to be mastered. Pain was an enemy to be ignored. During a demanding rehearsal, she felt a sharp twinge in her ankle. Her mind screamed, "Ignore it. Push through. Don't be weak." She powered through, finishing the routine in exquisite, pained perfection. The next day, her ankle was swollen and she was diagnosed with a serious strain. Forced to sit still, she was flooded with frustration, at her body, at the situation, at her lost momentum. Her physiotherapist, who had an interest in mindful movement, gave her a strange prescription. For the next week, he said, "Your job is not to heal the ankle. Your job is to listen to it. 5 times a day, sit quietly, close your eyes, and just feel your ankle. Don't judge it. Don't wish it was different. Just gather data. What does it actually feel like? Throbbing? Warm? Stiff? Describe it to yourself like a scientist describing a new phenomenon." Reluctantly, Sophia tried. The first few sessions were just storms of frustration and fear. But slowly, as she kept returning to pure sensation, something shifted. She began to notice subtle gradients. The pain wasn't a monolithic, bad thing. It was a specific, changing landscape. A dull ache here, a sharp pinch there, moments of cool relief. She started to feel a strange tenderness toward her ankle, this part of her that had been screaming for attention she had refused to give. She wasn't just listening to her body, she was in dialogue with it. Her frustration transformed into a respectful collaboration. Her recovery, guided by this attentive listening, was faster and more complete than anyone expected. And when she danced again, her movement had a new quality of intelligent grace, of conversation between intention and embodiment. Your emotional pain is like Sophia's ankle. We try to ignore it, push through it, or drown it out with mental stories. The practice is to sit with it, not as a broken thing, but as a messenger. What does sadness feel like in my body? Where is loneliness located? This isn't wallowing. It's conscious, contained inquiry. It brings the vast, overwhelming storm of emotion down to a manageable, tangible sensation in the present moment. And in that present moment, you have agency. You can breathe. You can offer kindness. You can simply be with what is. This is the essence of healing. We've spoken about the inner world and the body. Let's expand to the broader, ethical dimension of the path, which is not a set of rules, but the natural outflow of clear seeing. In Buddhism, ethical conduct, sila, is not about following commandments from an external authority to avoid punishment. It is the natural, intelligent behavior that arises when you deeply understand interconnection, sunyata, and the law of cause and effect, karma. When you see that harming another is literally, on some level, harming the web of which you are a part, non-harming, ahimsa, becomes self-evident, not a sacrifice. When you see that stealing arises from a delusion of lack and separation, generosity, dana, becomes a celebration of shared abundance. Here's an original, modern parable about this. A town was divided by a wide, vast river. On one side was a bustling market with plentiful goods. On the other was a village with rich farmland. For years, they had a turbulent, competitive relationship, trading unfairly, stealing ideas, building fences. A young engineer from the market side, Kai, had a vision for a beautiful, strong bridge. He saw it as a way to dominate, to control trade, to exploit the village's resources more efficiently. He built it with clever, locking mechanisms only his side could operate. The day the bridge opened, the market people marched across to make demands. But a curious thing happened. As they met the villagers face to face on the bridge's midpoint, they saw not enemies, but people with familiar worries. About their children, their elders, their futures. A villager offered a basket of fresh peaches from her orchard. A market merchant shared a flask of cool water. They started talking. Real trading began, based on need and fairness. Children from both sides ran across the bridge to play. Kai, watching from his control booth, felt a deep unease. His bridge, built for control, was being used for connection. His locking mechanisms seemed not just pointless, but offensive. In a moment of insight, he walked out with a giant key and symbolically unlocked the gates from both sides, throwing the keys into the river. The bridge was now truly free for all. His intention had been rooted in greed and separation. But the very act of building a connection, even for the wrong reasons, created the conditions for a wiser understanding to emerge. His later action of unlocking was not him following a rule. It was the natural result of seeing the interconnected community that his own structure had revealed. Ethics followed insight. In your life, you may start a practice, mindfulness, meditation, for a selfish reason, to be less stressed, to be more productive, to fix yourself. That's okay. That's your first bridge, built with the gears of self-concern. But as you practice, as you sit and see the nature of your own mind, you'll inevitably start to see that same nature in others. You'll see their suffering, their grasping, their fear. And a natural compassion will begin to arise. You might find yourself listening more patiently to a colleague, or letting a car merge, not because you should, but because you feel the shared struggle. Your ethics will become an organic expression of your widened view, not a burdensome discipline. The path transforms you from the inside out. Let's now address a major obstacle, the feeling of not having enough time to be spiritual. The perceived scarcity of time is one of the great phantoms of the modern age. Buddhism teaches us to investigate the nature of time itself. Is it a relentless tyrant, or a field of presence? We often live in psychological time, regretting the past, anxiously anticipating the future, which robs us of the only time that actually exists, this present moment. You don't need an hour on a cushion to practice. You need one breath. One conscious breath is a miniature meditation. One moment of truly seeing the steam rise from your coffee, feeling the mug's warmth, is a moment of mindfulness. The path isn't an added task on your to-do list, it's a different way of inhabiting the tasks already there. Washing dishes. Feel the water temperature, the slipperiness of soap, the clink of plates. That's meditation. In a tedious meeting, feel your feet on the floor. Listen to the timbre of voices. That's grounding. Stuck in traffic. Notice the play of light on the windshield, the pattern of your breath. That's awareness. We fragment our lives into spiritual time, meditation, yoga, and worldly time, everything else. Buddhism invites us to dissolve that false division. The entire flow of your life is the practice ground. Your frustration at the slow computer is as valid an object of mindfulness as your breath. In fact, it's more potent, because it's real. Here's a tiny, original story. A busy parent, Tom, felt guilty for not meditating. His teacher asked, "What do you do every night without fail?" "I read my daughter a bedtime story," he said. "Perfect," said the teacher. "For the next week, your practice is this: as you read, be 100% there. Feel the weight of her against you. Smell her hair. Hear every word you speak, see every picture you look at. When your mind wanders to your work email, gently come back to the story. That is your meditation." Tom did this. Not only did he feel a profound sense of peace and connection during those minutes, but his daughter, sensing his full presence, began to hug him tighter and fall asleep more peacefully. He wasn't adding practice, he was deepening presence within his existing life. That is the way. We've covered much ground. Let's integrate it with a final, extensive original story that pulls many threads together. This is the story of the lighthouse keeper and the storm. Ilara was the keeper of a lighthouse on a remote, rocky coast. Her purpose was clear: keep the great lamp lit, the lens turning, to warn ships of the treacherous rocks. She took pride in her vigilance. She hated storms. When a storm roared in, it meant danger, noise, and most frustratingly, it meant her light was often obscured by the driving rain and fog. She would feel a furious impotence. What's the point of my light if no one can see it? She'd think, battling the wind to check the machinery. One winter, a storm of legendary ferocity hit. For 3 days and nights, the world was a chaos of howling wind and crashing waves. Ilara fought exhaustion, maintaining the light, though she was sure it was useless. On the 4th morning, the storm broke. The sea was calm, littered with driftwood but no wrecks. As the sun rose, a small fishing boat limped into the cove beneath the lighthouse. The captain, grizzled and weary, came to her door. "Miss," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I need to thank you." "The light?" she said, puzzled. "But you couldn't have seen it in that soup." "Oh, we didn't see the beam," he agreed. "Not clearly. But in the worst of it, when we were lost and terrified, we'd see a faint, diffused glow through the fog. A soft, pulsing smear of light in the blackness. We couldn't navigate by it. But we could orient by it. We knew that glow was the lighthouse. We knew where the rocks were relative to that glow. It didn't show us the way out, it showed us where we were. And that was enough to keep us from panicking, to hold a steady course until the worst passed. Elara was stunned. She had spent the storm in frustration, believing her core function had failed. But her light had performed a different, more profound function, not cutting through the storm, but being a constant, unwavering presence within it. Its value wasn't in its clarity, but in its reliability. This is the ultimate permission slip for your path. You will have storms, internal storms of grief, anger, doubt, frustration. The goal is not to have a light so powerful it prevents all storms. That's impossible. The goal is to become the lighthouse itself. To tend the light of your awareness through all weather. In the clear times, it will guide and warn. In the stormy times, when clarity is impossible, it will simply be a glow. A reminder, you are here. This is the storm. I am still with you. Your practice is not about never feeling lost. It's about building an inner structure of awareness so steadfast that even when you are lost, you are not adrift. You are oriented to your own presence. So, when frustration arises, see it as the storm. Don't curse the storm for obscuring your perfect, calm light. Tend to the light. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your breath. That is your lighthouse. Your frustration is just the weather around it. It cannot extinguish the light unless you abandon your post. We are coming to a close. Let's recap this not as a list of doctrines, but as a lived, psychological map. 1. Permission. Your frustration is data, not failure. It's part of the path's terrain. 2. The gap, suffering, dukkha, is the pain of resisting what is. Investigate the gap between reality and your demand. 3. The lake and the weather. You are the aware lake, not the stormy weather of emotion. Practice non-identification. 4. The gardener. Change your relationship to inner weeds, from war to curious ecology. Understand their conditions. 5. The river self. You are a process, not a statue. This frees you from defending a fixed, brittle identity. 6. The karmic gardener. Every thought and action is a seed. Consciously plant seeds that bear the fruit you wish to live in. 7. The potter's dance. Don't kill the wobble. Engage with it. It may be the source of unique beauty and life. 8. The open hand. Detachment is non-grasping, not indifference. Care deeply, but release the stranglehold on outcomes. 9. The sound engineer. Listen to the space between. See interconnection, sunyata. You are part of a symphony, not a solo act. 10. The clock's chime. Your full emotional range is your truth. Don't mute yourself. Integrate the mechanism to live wholly. 11. The body's wisdom. Ground awareness in physical sensation. It anchors you in the present and offers direct compassion. 12. The bridge. Ethical living flows naturally from seeing interconnection. Insight leads to compassionate action. 13. The lighthouse. Your awareness is your steadfast light. Its value is not in preventing storms, but in remaining present through them. This path is not a linear progression from bad to good, from frustrated to zen. It is a spiral. You will revisit these lessons at deeper levels, with different wobbles, in new storms. Each time, You have more tools, more perspective, more self-compassion. So, as you leave Monk's Temple today, carry this simple question as your practice: can I be with this, exactly as it is, for just one more breath? Not to change it. Not to fix it. Not to justify it. Just to be with it. In that being with, you are the lake holding the weather. You are the lighthouse in the storm. You are the gardener studying the weed. You are the open hand. You are the note informing the silence. You are already everything you need to be. The practice is just remembering. And when you forget, as you will, remember to be kind to yourself for forgetting. That kindness is the heart of the path. Thank you for your profound presence here. This is Monk's Temple. You are always welcome to return, exactly as you are. Go in peace. Go with permission.